Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Yumi from Yumi the Book Demon, and we're going to go through an entire year of novels because, 2020 was just not my year. Not anyone's year, really, but like, I didn't do anything on my channel and it's really showing. But regardless, I did exactly one 3-month wrap-up in January, which I do not remember doing. And it only covered 3 books of this year because I was trying to do November, December, and January. So this is going to be my full year wrap up, which is going to cover a lot of books, which may mean that this is going to be in multiple parts. I don't know yet, but I'm going to do this all in one go. And if it gets really long, I'm sorry. Okay, so most of these are in order, and I will give you the star rating and I will give you a little bit of what I thought about them, but I don't know if these are necessarily all in order because my Goodreads is kind of messed up at this moment, and I don't know why, but I tried as best as I could. First off, the #1 thing that I read this year was The Bone Witch. This was for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Books Club, and I gave this a 4-star. This is a book about necromancers, but also geishas, but also a revenge plot. It's an interesting thing. I really enjoyed it. It was pitched to me as being geisha-like, and I was really hesitant and reticent about what that was going to be because I have feelings. I am a titled Japanese classical dancer, and so I have a great attachment to the Japanese dance world, and that does include the geisha culture, even though my school is removed from that lifestyle. That said, I think that Rin Shipeko did a fantastic job, especially considering this is a fantasy world. It's meshing the reality and the fantasy, but she did just a fabulous job. I would highly recommend this to anyone, particularly if you are curious at all, honestly, about geisha lifestyle, because it's, well, absolutely, that's not the focal of this book. If you want to have any sort of feeling about what it might be like, and from what I understand it might be like, this is a really good opportunity for you to delve into it in a sort of fantasy setting. Beyond that, honestly, the book and the writing is just, it's wonderful. Fabulous. We read it for Sisterhood of the Traveling Books. Could not recommend it more. Next I read was The Vine Witch. Light, fluffy read. Honestly, it felt like a palate cleanser, and it did exactly what it needed to do. It's a bit of a historical romance with witches, with spell casting, and we are following Elena, who is a vine witch. She makes sure that the vinery that she works on, that the plants are healthy, that, you know, the healthy competition hexes get taken care of and such and so forth. But she has been away for several years under a curse, and she's now back to get revenge. That sort of breaks down and devolves, of course, when she finds out that there's trouble going on at home, and of course there's a cute boy, so she must fall in love. It's quite straightforward. I don't want to say that it's predictable, but it's quite predictable, but like not in the bad, it's gonna put me off kind of way. It was just, I knew what was coming up next, and that's okay. Honestly, it was a 4-star for me. I think maybe 3.5 is maybe more accurate to say. I would recommend this, again, to pretty much anyone. It didn't feel like it was a very difficult read. It was very fast, and it was a really fun world to live in for, you know, a couple days. Next up, we have The Sea Witch. January was all about witches, apparently, and I don't know why. But we have The Sea Witch, which is a Little Mermaid retelling. It is sort of a prequel to what we understand as The Little Mermaid, the origins of who we know as Ursula, and I have feelings about this one. I enjoyed it. I believe I gave it 4 stars, but at the same time, I don't know what was happening exactly. The writing, the technique of writing was actually incredible because you were trying to piece things together based on what you know, and I believe that the author took that into account, and so when everything turns on its head, you get to go back through the timeline, essentially, and try to figure out where you were inserting yourself, and so there's a really interesting play between the text that's there and then with the reader's expectations. Fabulous book. On a technical scale, it's great. I think that I said that I was not going to continue with the series because unless we're really gonna like break apart or break off from The Little Mermaid story, like Hans Christian Andersen or Disney, I don't know how much you can really play with the expectations. Also, like, I'm not a huge fan of Little Mermaid to begin with, so it's kind of not for me. But I do think that The Sea Witch was a great book. I feel like it deserves a little bit more attention than it has been getting, did get. But yeah, there we are. Next, we have Two Dark Reigns, which is the third, yes, in the Three Dark Crowns series. Essentially, magical island. There are triplets that are born, you know, every generation, and they fight for the crown, except this generation has gone a little bit awry. The powerful houses are being very confused. The sisters don't necessarily all want to kill each other, which is, you know, by tradition they have to. There's teenage love, there's adventure, there's interesting creepy spirits, so like it hits all of the boxes for me. I don't really know what to say about this other than I really enjoyed the Three Dark Crown series. There is more to this than I had expected. With every book it gets a little bit more complicated and I understand a little bit less, but I still gave this, yeah, I still gave it 4 stars. And I, again, highly recommend. And there we are. Next is Caitlin Doty's Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And it's wonderful. I love her. Okay, so I love her very much. She is a wonderful human being. She's a YouTuber. She started her, I guess, public career on YouTube as Ask a Mortician. She is a mortician. She is for death positivity. And if you don't know what that is, please go check her out. If you know what death positivity is, please go check her out. She has several books out. She has a very particular voice when she's writing, and she's very, very funny. She takes everything with, you know, with great humor. And Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs was written on one of her, I think it was her first book tour, when a bunch of children asked her about death things. And because children have zero filter, they asked some wild questions. And of course, being an educator that she is, she took that seriously and then explained the things that I think some of us were actually quite curious about, and other ones that I was just like, I would have never thought about that question in a million years, but it's actually really interesting. So she takes science and history and what we know about the human body and applies it, and it's so much fun. I read this with the audiobook, as I want to do, and she did the audiobook as well, so just having her explain it was wonderful. I think it was on Scribd. Listen to it, it's quite good. Next was Punk 57, which was my real first foray into, I guess, erotica? I don't know, like smutty romance. I gave it a 3-star. And it's not necessarily that I think that it was bad. As far as like the story itself, I think that it's fun and interesting, and you know, the smut itself was fine, but the technical writing style, just, I hated it. I almost DNF'd it, except for the fact that I promised myself that I was going to finish this one. Also, there were just some things that were, as far as like their relationship and things that were discussed within the sphere of how we approach sex and everything like that, I was not down for, including and up to the fact that the villain of the story is villainized because he has photos of girls that he's had sex with. Like, literally, he hasn't distributed them without anyone's knowledge. He's literally just, he has photos of them, and it doesn't even look like they didn't know what was happening. Like, it seemed consensual, except for the fact that our main characters said that it wasn't consensual. They just said that. They just assumed. I have problems with this story. However, if you just want literally just a romp in like high school, I guess it was high school. Was it high school or was it college? High school bullshit. You could quite reasonably like this. Anyway. Onward. Next was Storm and Fury. This was one of the ones that I got in a Scribbler box. I gave this a 3-star. I would call it an urban fantasy setting with demons and gargoyles, which I was not quite expecting, but here we are. We have your chosen one trope. We have hate to love. We have special treatment of, you know, said characters. It was bland. I would call it palate cleanser, except that I was really hoping for it to be more. I have since passed it on to Cheyenne, so hopefully she will read it at some point and you can get her take on it. It was very middle of the road. I wouldn't say it's a bad story. I wouldn't say it's a good story. It was a novel. And that's all I have to say about that. Number 8 on this list is Gathering of Shadows. I don't remember when I read A Dark Shade of Magic, but I picked up Gathering of Shadows. It is one of my only physically read books this year. I borrowed it from a library, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It, oddly enough, did not feel like a sagging middle to me, because it is the second of the trilogy. I felt like it did have a slow beginning, but I think that V.E. Schwab is sort of in the habit of having slow beginnings, and then it just sort of like takes off at lightning speed, and that's definitely what this did. Let's see, what did I give it? I gave it a 4-star. I'm also mildly biased because she is my favorite author, but I really enjoyed it. I was really upset at the ending, at the cliffhanger. I want to scream. I think I did scream. Yeah, that was that. And then we had one of the more disappointing reads of this year, which was The Night Olivia Fell. Again, I got this in the Scribbler box, and I was determined to actually read all of my Scribbler books this year. And this was a thriller, or a mystery, and I have so many problems with this. It is very anti-choice. It is very pro-life. It is also, it describes a bunch of characters very poorly. Like, they are not characters that have any sort of depth in them. Like, the red herring is an obvious red herring. There's logic holes. There's a lot that I just, even on a technical scale, just could not do. The only reason why I finished this and didn't DNF it was because I was reading it for Demonathon, and I didn't want to just give that up and DNF it. But I almost did a review of this, and it was going to be a scathing review. It has been several months since I read this, and it has left my mind, so honestly probably will never do that review, but highly would not recommend this. Even if you enjoy thrillers, I would not recommend this. Number 10 is Harleen, and this was a 5-star book for me. Wonderful, absolutely. Like, please, if you like DC at all, if you like Harley at all, please, please, please go get this. I want to purchase the rest of it. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. Like, I can't praise it anymore. I don't know. The whole thing is Harley Quinn's origins. So we're getting a little bit of breaking of psyche throughout the book, or at least the first comic novel. I don't know. It's 60 something pages, and there are 4 or 5 total that encompass the series. It's so good. The characters have very distinct voices. Steven Sajak is like incredible as far as his facial structures. They do sort of all look the same after a while if you've seen his art style, but like, they're extremely expressive, and he pays attention so much to body language. It's great. It's wonderful. Please go. Number 11 was also for Demonathon, and this was She Walks in Shadows. This was a short story collection. It essentially was a bunch of H.P. Lovecraftian horror stories written by women, which is traditionally something that they don't really get a lot of recognition for. So this was a short story collection, a novel, for them to be put on display, and it was really good. I gave it 4 stars, and I think I'm a little biased on that. I think it was great. I think that there are some that are just knock it out of the park, and then there are others that I can't honestly remember what happened. And I think that's kind of what happens with all short story collections, so I'm not really upset about it. It was great. Again, this was something that I found on Scribd. It was wonderful. So if you like some creepy things, if you like Mexican Gothic, because the author also she was the editor, because obviously she wasn't, the author, because it was a collection of different authors, but I think she was the editor on that. So she did a fabulous job, and yeah, do the thing. Next we have The Ninth House, which was read for the Sisterhood Book Club. I gave this 5 stars. I'm sure you have heard about Ninth House all over the place, so I won't say much more about it. I was particularly fond of the fact that we had really, really dark things about the college experience. It was nice, and we didn't shy away from really the gross things, even some gross things that really no one should ever have to experience, even in print form. It didn't necessarily always make logical sense as far as characters' motivations and forgiveness in particular, but I think that in this very messed up world or version of Yale that we got, it made sense. It had an internal logic rather than an external logic. So yeah, I liked it. Number 13 was probably one of the best reads of the year, which I actually did a full review on, so if you want to go look at Dussel, go check out the link somewhere probably down below. Enjoy me ranting for 20 minutes about how wonderful this book is. Definitely not for everyone. There are so many trigger warnings and content warnings for this. But if you can handle all of the content and trigger warnings, this was a fabulous book. I highly would recommend this to anyone who is interested in speculative fiction in particular, but sci-fi. It is a romance for the first half and speculative fiction and just terribleness in the second half. And it's wonderful. Oh my God, it's wonderful. I believe this is K.M. Sparza's first, I think it's their debut, and the next one is coming out in 2021. First Become Ashes is like one of my most anticipated reads for 2021 because This one was so good. I have high expectations. Go read Dussel. Number 14 was The Hunger Games, and this is the first time that I have read The Hunger Games. I know, I missed the boat on that. Oh well. We also read this for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Book Club. I was very surprised at how much I actually enjoyed it. I think it is aged really well. This was a five-star read for me. Crazy, I know. Honestly, the first like quarter of this year was just full of 4 and 5-star reads. It was great. You all know about The Hunger Games. You've probably watched the movies if you haven't, or if you blah, blah, blah. But we were doing this in preparation for A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which everyone has dismissed. Yeah, I still need to continue the series because I would like to finish out the original Hunger Games trilogy. I don't know if I will be eventually picking up Songbirds and Snakes, but that is for future Yumi to figure out. Number 15 was Truly Devious, which again, another one that was for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Books Club. Notice I'm slowly starting to not read anymore. I had a drought, but I made sure that I actually finished each of the book club books. So Truly Devious is a young adult mystery which takes place at a very exclusive school up in the mountains of Vermont, I believe. There were a couple of murders that happened in, was it the 1920s or 30s, and were never solved, so our protagonist is extremely interested in the murders, and then suspicious things start happening at the school and she's trying to figure it out. There is amazing anxiety rep. It sort of keeps you on the edge of your seat because you don't know where the things are going, and there's flashbacks between things that happened in the 20s and things that are happening currently now. So you're sort of struggling to figure out like what's happening concurrently, but I think that it's still really good. The ending is a little wonky, but it launches you right into book 2, which is a little bit of a sagging middle, but we'll get there. I gave this 3 stars. I feel like it was more like a 3.5, but I rounded down because the ending did really kind of bring it down for me. But I would recommend, if you have any sort of interest in YA and any sort of interest in mysteries, like this is a really good one. Number 16 is The Girl from the Other Side, which is a graphic novel. I'm not sure if it's a manga. It's a little girl and she has been sort of abandoned, and it looks like this gigantic demon creature is trying to help her out, except that they cannot touch. And it's so cute and I love it. And it just, it's so creepy and also so wholesome, and it's my aesthetic. So yeah, please read The Girl from the Other Side. They are a little bit expensive, so I haven't really got the rest, but I really watched them, so eventually I will be reading the rest of the series. Number 17 I will put on here is Severance by Ling Ma, and this was recommended as part of the Asian Readathon by Cindy. I DNF'd this because it was getting a little bit heavy-handed with its comparisons between zombies and corporate life and just sort of the mundane malaise of existence. I wasn't here for it. This was a very particular book for, I think, a very particular audience, and I am not that audience. I don't even know how to describe it. There are things that I remember about this book, like the main character's dating life and, you know, her job in publishing in the Bible section, that are so boring that I don't want to mention them, except for the fact that I feel like they were important, but I don't care. And that's the long and the short of it. I don't care. And then we finally get to like what should have been the exciting bit, which was like the zombie-esque people that are out in the world. And there's no fear of them because they don't do anything. They sort of just continue to live their lives as if they were alive because, you know, existence is pain. And I couldn't handle it. I think that maybe if this had come before the year 2020, I may have been a little bit more interested in it, but at this time we were in the thick of it, and yeah. So number 18 is The Heart Forger, which I really enjoyed The Bone Witch, so we went to The Heart Forger. I believe I gave this 5 stars, which I feel like Rin Chupeco is just really good at middles. I don't know how she does it, but she does it very well. And Heart Forger everything was set up, and we were going full boat to wherever she wanted to go, and it was wonderful. Loved it. Absolutely would recommend it. Don't want to spoil anything because I feel like anything that I would say about this outside the setup, which I already gave you in The Bone Witch, it will definitely spoil the things that are going to come. So read The Bone Witch, read The Heart Forger. I will also be saying this about Shadowglass as well, which was just wonderful. Number 19, I decided in my COVID depression to actually try to do NetGalley this year. Didn't go quite as well as I thought it was gonna go, but here we are. I read Dispersion, which is a sci-fi And I DNF'd this. I will not be recommending this, not just for the fact that it was a really nonsensical and really difficult book to get into, but it's a novella. So like 150 pages at most, I think, and it's $40. There's no reason for that. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are as an author, because apparently the author is quite well known in the sci-fi circles. There's no reason for a novella to be $40, beyond the fact that I think that it was really terribly written and didn't make any sense. And apparently I was not the only one who felt this way, but that was my first foray into NetGalley, so clearly not cut out for me. I will mention this because I did enjoy it, but I read this book. I will not be giving it a name. You can see it for yourself. And the author is a disappointing mess, and it is unfortunate. I did enjoy this book. If I was going to give any sort of stars, it would have been quite high. I won't say how many stars, because once again, the author is a piece of shit. And dude, this year was also a year of just terrible people being called out for terrible things, and I'm upset that this author was doing terrible things. I'm not upset that he was called out for the terrible things that he did. So that's all I have to say for this. Next, I read This Savage Song, YA monsters that rise out from terrible deeds, which is kind of fun. I don't even know how to quite explain the world, but it is quite fun. We have dual perspective from essentially a monster who wants to be a human and a human who's really involved in monstrous acts. It's really fun. They have a pretty good adventure. It's very straightforward. I give this 4-star. Again, I'm leaning more biased because I enjoy Victoria Schwab's writing, and it was a lot of fun. I think it was a good thing for me to pick up when I did. Again, it was in the thick of lockdown. I absolutely would recommend, if you like urban fantasy, if you like young adult fiction, this is a book for you. Next is also another Sisterhood of the Traveling Book Club. It was also another Victoria Schwab, which was The Near Witch. I gave this 3 stars, and that was kind of a little bit generous. This is a book of its time. It was published in 2011. It is Victoria Schwab's debut, and it is unlike anything else she has ever written, ever. It has a very different tone. She doesn't really do light and fluffy like this one is, and it suffers a lot from debut and early 2010s writing generally. So I would not recommend this, and that breaks my heart because I love her so much. But if that was the first thing that I had read from her, I don't know if I would have trusted anyone who recommended her, because it's not like anything else. So if you want, go read it, but I don't think it's worth it. And definitely do not pick up the audiobook. Oh my god, that it is so bad. I got the audiobook, I returned the audiobook so that I could purchase the ebook and finish it for the book club. Don't get the audiobook. Next, which I think this was out of order, but it was on my Goodreads this way. So next was They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. 5-star. Please actually go check out our live show for this one, because I have a lot to say on the subject and I don't want to go into it here because I will be here for the next 5 hours. Please go read it. It's a really important book, especially when we're talking about democracy and civil rights. Please, 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 please go read it. And if you don't know about the Japanese internment camps, also please just do a cursory Google search. It is just do the search, please. Thank you. 24 is The Cheater's Code. This was so this was on a NetGalley, and I had seen things about it. It looked super cute. Look at this cover. It's really adorable. And there was a lot of sex. Legitimately, this was a fever dream of porn, and it was great and it was adorable. I gave this 5 stars. I don't even know how to say this. If you're not offended by cartoon characters having sex, if you don't care that there's some BDSM, there's also some like weird, almost not quite crossing the line of furries. It's LGBT friendly, like it's good. It has a really wholesome message at the end, and it was fun and it was funny. That was the thing, is that it wasn't erotica for like erotica, it was erotica for humor and not making fun of anyone. It was just like the situations were funny. It was really good. Please go check it out. Next one is The Devouring Gray, which I gave 4 stars to, and this was for the Sisterhood Book Club. Culty, foundery, small towny, demony, really good. I have heard that Deck of Omens, unfortunately, which is the sequel to this, is not as good, and like severely not as good, so I haven't read it yet, but Devouring Gray absolutely was worth everyone's time. All characters felt really good. From a technical aspect, it was so tightly written. It was really good. There was like no fat on this. A wonderful time. I know people have always, have already talked about this. I'm late on the boat. Again, what's new? But it was quite good. Please go read it if you haven't. Number 26 is Song Below Water, which I know a lot of people have also talked about, and also I am late on the boat on this as well. I didn't read for literally like 6 months. It was terrible. And Song Below Water was one of those that I kept pushing off and kept pushing off because I wanted to read it, but I couldn't actually make myself read anything, let alone something that I knew was going to be discussing some real world things. But Song Below Water is absolutely wonderful. Discusses the Black Lives Matter movement in a way that I think it both shines a light on blackness and also takes it away just enough where I think that if you were to take away skin color, we're still having the same conversation. We can have the conversations without talking about race, but we are also talking about race in a very visceral way. There is a secondary story. It's a dual POV. We're having other discussions, again, that I think are very important for young people to read. This is definitely a YA book, so we're not talking about fully matured characters, but they're being forced into adulthood nonetheless and having adult conversations. It's great. Highly recommend. I gave this a 4-star only because there is a transition from a focus and action sequences from one POV to the other one, and I think that was a little rough, but that is purely a technical aspect. For the story itself, honestly, it's a 5-star for me. I'm just really picky about my 5 stars. Number 27 is Strange the Dreamer. This was 5-star read. If you want to watch us just absolutely gushing about it, please go watch our live show. Jade was Sarai. She came into the group blue. She painted herself. Oh my god, it was wonderful. And she just sort of showed up that way. She totally forgot to ask if that was okay, but that's totally okay. Please go check her out. Absolutely wonderful. The writing is stunning. I don't think I need to say anything more. I was not a fan of Lady Taylor until this book. Now I think I'm just gonna have to read Daughter of Smoke and Bone again because maybe I'm the stupid one. Maybe I didn't do the thing right. Number 28, which this was the book that broke my reading slump and I'm so happy, and it was An Unkindness of Magicians. I gave it 4 stars for weird reasons, but this, honestly, this feels very upper crust New England, particularly maybe like New York. It might actually take place in New York. I don't remember. High class, snooty, elitist magicians essentially having duels, and also there's a revenge plot, and also it discusses privilege and classism in a way that I think will speak to a lot of people who have a lot of it, particularly in the capitalist sense. It is a little wonky. There's a lot of names, there's a lot of people that you have to keep track of, and there's a lot of different motivations that are important, I guess you could say. But I devoured this in about, let's say, 18 hours. I really just sat down and listened to the whole thing, and it got me out of my book slump, so I am a little bit biased on this. Gave it a 4-star, would highly recommend. Number 29 is The Only Good Indians, and oh my god, why did I never read Stephen Graham Jones before this point? 5-star, just everything wonderful. I know that we were having discussions about people who are outside of the indigenous community discussing this book, but oh my god, please go read this. It was wonderful. It has a ton of things that I know that I missed, and it doesn't even matter because it was horrifying and wonderful and just, it was so good. I can't even put words to how good it was. On a technical aspect, it was wonderful. On a story level aspect, it was wonderful. On a horror level, it was creepy as shit. I don't know what else to say. Just go do the thing. Number 30 was The Vanishing Stair, which is the sequel to Truly Devious. This did feel a little bit like a saggy middle, but I still gave it 4 stars. I think it really expanded and got comfortable in the worlds both that we're living in and trying to figure out. More of the mysteries are revealed and more of the relationships are revealed. Teenagers being teenagers is also a thing because hormonal and trying to figure out where they fit in society and stuff like that. I think it was done really well. What I got out of it is pushing me towards finishing the trilogy, which honestly, that's what a middle should be doing anyway. So 4 stars. Number 31 was Man and Superman by Bernard Shaw. And I didn't give this one anything. I did finish it. This is a play from a very particular time at the turn of the last century. Oh god, it's so dull. So I read that really the only thing that's worth reading and studying is the second act, which is literally when all the characters are displaced and put in hell, where they have great discussions, in which case, yes, I would never recommend anyone to slog through the first and third act because they don't make any sense, and it's just tedium, like British tedium at its core, and it sucks. But Hell was quite fun. That middle section was quite fun, so would not recommend unless you are dying to really look at plays from that era, and then please only look at the second act. Number 32 is Shadow Glass, and that was so good. Wonderful ending. I cried. Oh god, it was so good. There were so many twists and turns, and the romance was wonderful. And because we're finally getting out of the past story and going into the future, or like the present to, you know, the end of the book. It was so good. It was so heartbreaking, and like I gave it 5 stars. Oh, it was so good. I'm sad that it's over. I've discussed this before, where when I have a series of books that I enjoy, I still try to space it out because I don't want a book hangover, like just, you know, bam, 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 back to back. I usually have to wait several months between, and I did with this, but I didn't, I was excited to get to the next one. I almost picked up Shadow Glass immediately after Heart Forger, but I know myself and I did not want a book hangover, so I did, what was it? October, I think. So oh, it was so good. Again, highly recommend the trilogy. It was great. It was a wonderful Asian-inspired world. I have not seen Asian-inspired worlds do well. Rinchu Peko did it fabulously. So please, please, please pick up the Bone Witch trilogy. Next one was Mexican Gothic. Oh my gosh. Fabulous book, 5 stars. Honestly, I don't even care if I'm biased on this. It has to do a lot with eugenics and breeding and some interesting topics that I want to dive more into as far as like the historic context. The way that Myrna Garcia really like delved into it and the way that she wove it into the narrative, it felt like this may have been a conversation that happened in the 1950s, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm curious about that, and I still haven't done it because I don't remember how to do anything. Honestly, if you have not seen me gush about this online, on Twitter particularly, like, please go read this. It is creepy. It is weird. There are mentions, unfortunately, of mass murder, suicide, incest as well, but honestly, the rest of it is wonderful and gross and great. If horror is your genre, please go pick this up. Number 34 is Marvel 1602. I did not give this a rating because I feel like I don't really read enough comics to make this viable. I did enjoy the story. It honestly, it should get a high rating. I don't feel like I got out of it exactly what I should have gotten out of it, just because I don't know the histories of these characters well enough. Fabulous story. It's essentially the Marvel universe if it was set in 1602 England mostly. It's a great adventure. There's an element that's lost in me as a reader, in particular because I don't read a lot of comics, but it's written by Neil Gaiman, and so it's tight, it's well done. The art's actually quite good and like wonderful and engrossing. And yeah, I read it on Comixology, so that was, it was good. I do own a physical copy. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me. Otherwise, I would probably be putting it up here somewhere. Would I recommend? I think I would only recommend this to people who really enjoy Marvel Comics, because you probably will get a lot more out of it than I did. Next was Cemetery Boys. I do have it over there, but I did read this on audiobook, and oh god, it was a fabulous time. I gave this 4 stars. It does suffer a little bit from debut, but honestly, it was so cute, and we had so many different conversations, even if it was just lightly brushed over, that I think that a lot of young adults will benefit from having that conversation really early. There's also some language things that I understand that I don't understand. I do not speak Spanish. I listen to it a lot, but I don't understand it. But I've heard and seen other people discussing about the particular word choices that were just excellent. So I'm deferring to their knowledge. If you want just an adorable romance between a trans boy and a ghost, it's wonderful. Please do the thing. I'm really excited for Aiden Thomas's other books that are coming out. He has a Peter Pan retelling coming out. He has a couple different things that are just lined up for like the next 4 years, and I'm excited. Next was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I just got this book, but I read it on audiobook and I devoured it in like 2 days. It was wonderful. 5 stars. Woman lives for 300 years because she made a deal with the devil that kind of went wrong. Nobody remembers her. As soon as that she is out of their sight, she is out of their mind. It's an interesting way for her to navigate, honestly, everything, her life, her sense of self. She does have a very toxic relationship with the sort of shadowy god devil thing that she makes the bargain with. I am trash, and I love Luke so much. I essentially made a less god-like being like him, and so I'm just... I think that this is not a book for everyone. As I was watching other reviews of this book, if you feel like you are a character-driven reader, this is probably not going to be a book for you. This is a book filled with atmosphere. This is more of an atmospheric book, but also this is a theme-heavy book. And this is something that I was feeling very much when I finished Addie LaRue, understanding that I haven't read everything that V.E. Schwab has ever written, but I can see a timeline from like where her themes began and also how it formed into Addie LaRue. For me, this was an excellent book, but I don't think this is for everyone. I think that if you want strong, compelling characters with a strong, compelling story, you are not gonna like this. Number 37 is The Never Tilting World by Rinju Peko. Cheyenne and Rachel wanted to read this. I guess they started first, and then Cheyenne's like, hey, did you want to read this with us? And I kind of did. Piggybacked on that. Interesting concept, interesting world. I really enjoyed this. There are twin goddesses that are born, and in order to keep the prosperity of the world going, when they become of age, whenever that is, they go on this great journey to make bargains with the underworld, which is, I guess, the Cruel Kingdom. And unfortunately, in the last generation, the world broke and stopped spinning. So half of the world is in complete icy darkness and the other world is in sun, desert all the time. And this is the world this is the never tilting world. 2 new goddesses who are trying to figure out what it's like on the other side, because the 2 sides have never reached each other. So they go on a great adventure. Of course, there has to be love. It's a little bit sapphic, and I like it. It also gets a little bit evil and creepy, and I also love it. The Ever Cruel Kingdom is the next book. It just released. I haven't picked it up yet, but I am definitely looking forward to that. Number 38 is The Queen of Nothing, and I know I am late to everything. I gave it 4 stars. It was good enough. I think that I liked Jude more. I hate Jude. Like, the only reason why I gave Wicked King like a higher star rating was because literally Jude got tortured for like a third of the book. Physically tortured. That's the only reason why I like this. So I like Jude a lot more when she's not having to play the court games and she's doing her badassery thingamabob and whatever. Yeah, gave it 4 stars. What's more to say? 39 is the Henna Wars, and oh my god, this is so cute. Discussing being LGBT in immigrant households. It also talks about cultural appropriation. It also talks about being the child of immigrant parents. There's a lot of different like light discussions and how it interacts with the world at large. It's really good. It's really cute. It has great discussions where, again, like much like Song Below Water, it's good for young people to have these conversations early and to recognize that what they're feeling, particularly when you are POC, like those gut feelings that you don't have words for, they're not only valid, but there are words for them. There is a way to have a discussion about it, and it's not just you. You don't have to feel like you're the only one who feels this way. I don't know if that's necessarily a problem in the wider scope because we have a lot more open communication, especially with young people, but like a lot of the things that I was feeling at this sort of like 16 to 18 high school age, I definitely felt this and I did not have the vocabulary for it, and I also felt like maybe I'm the crazy one. So it really would have helped me when I was that age. I think that it's a really apt thing to give to young adults now. Number 4 is A Conjuring of Light. I finally finished the Dark Shade of Magic series. I gave this 4 stars, and it was a good ending, I think. I don't know how I feel about the ending. I'm like mad about the ending, but I do know that there is the Steel Prince comics, which I probably will pick up at some point, and then we're gonna get the Threads of Power trilogy that's coming out, so hopefully that will be a thing, sometime, I don't know, but I will be continuing it. Excited to see how Delilah Bard and Kel get on with their adventures. I really hope that Alucard and Rai make more appearances because I love them so much. They're so cute. Would I recommend the series? Yeah, actually, it was a good time. It was a great adventure. Again, it was like, it's a little bit dark and I really like a little bit dark. So why not? The Poppy War, this is a weird one because I want to give it 5 stars, but I only gave it 4 stars because like there are some things that I have technically that I'm like, what did you do that? Why did you do that for? Like, why didn't you cut this book in half? Because I feel like this ended at some point, but we kept on going on, and then we actually ended it, and I was like, ooh, that was a really good ending, and then I don't know. The character arc was fabulous. The world building was fabulous. The magic system was fabulous. Everything was really, really good. The pacing was weird. I will be continuing with the Poppy War series. I kind of wish that I'd gotten the Illumicrate editions. They're so gorgeous, but that's neither here nor there. That's where I am with that. Highly recommend. Please do the thing. Apparently it's getting a television series. I want to finish it before the TV series comes out so I can do that. So there we are. The final one that I have finished for this year as of this recording on December 21st, and that is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is the absolute disappointing read of this year. Again, if you want to watch us trash it for an hour, pretty much, please go look at the other video. We did this for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Books Club. It was bad. It was so bad. There's just some things about this that just scream privilege, and white privilege in particular. There's a lot of outdated advice and a lot of advice that I just straight up do not agree with. Her asides, like her little like stories to make her point and whatever things that she wants to say, are really weird and a little bit name droppy and like, what? I don't necessarily believe that these things happened, almost. I don't know. It felt weird. However, if you are someone who's never tried to be a creative person, who doesn't know how to go back into a creative life, who needs someone to tell you that it's okay, that you don't need to be good at what you do to enjoy it, I think that this is a good book for you. Just take everything with a grain of salt. Take what you need from this book, but don't make it your Bible. I will be discussing 2 more books. I know this is already a freaking long video, I'm so sorry. But I'm in the middle of reading The Deep. I will say it was a little bit difficult to get into as far, like that first like chapter, because just thrown into this world and there was a lot of information that was just thrown at me. But now that I'm in the thick of it, I absolutely adore this book. I'm excited to see the end of it. I am about 1/3 of the way through, so I obviously still have a bit to go, but very happy. I kind of wish that I'd gotten the physical copy. The audiobook narrator is a little bit wonky. Like, his voice goes up at the end of every sentence, and it seems like he's trying to make this as a sort of poetic reading of this book rather than just reading the book. So not a big fan of his narration. However, the actual story itself, wonderful, love it. I am excited to finish that. And also I will be reading To Kill a Kingdom because that is the last book that we're reading, or the book that we're reading for December for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Books Club. And we will be having that live show in January at some point. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell down below if you haven't already. For videos that will be not as long or tedious or as many parts as this. And I will remember in 2021 to actually do these monthly wrap-ups or recent reads or whatever. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video. All right, bye.
She said it will never go away. I know there is nothing left to say. Can we try to hold on just for now, even if we don't know how to show them what we're all about?